Hi, I am Isiko Muhammad L, and I fight cancer with my food. I was going through a really difficult breakup, marriage. Um, it was really hard. I had put, everything into that relationship, into that marriage. Um, and it was devastating, for me. Uh, I thought that was going to be the relationship that I retired, um, began to travel, all of those things that we aspire to do, when we are done with the bulk of our work on this plane. Um, there were a lot of things going on, all at the same time. Uh, Really stressful. There were a lot of, people around who I would open myself up to them and, you know, started to try to help. And, I was just, it was bad. It was bad. Um, we had just moved our family and the company to Fort Worth. I'm from Fort Worth, Texas. I have lived some of a lot of different places. Um, and when the decision was made to move back to Fort Worth, wasn't really because that's where I'm from. It was more of a business move. There were a lot of opportunities that made themselves available to my company. And, when we got here, they did not pan out, not one of them. Um, so it was hard. I was given an armload of lemons, and you know the saying, I was making lemonade. But at the same time, I was meeting a lot of people because what happened was I started driving for Uber. I became an Uber driver to, supplement the, uh, you know, income so I could pay bills, pay some of the bills at the house. Of course, my wife, she was working. We did it together. Uber was a eye-opening experience. I bounced a lot of ideas off of my riders to see, because it's while I was driving, I was steadily formulating what to do because when we came here, I had a plan that I was working. And when those opportunities fell through, well, of course, I had to do something else. And what ended up happening was, like I said, I was driving for Uber, and a number of things jumped out at me about, what I was doing, what I wasn't doing, what I could be doing. And the company began to grow, and it grew, right? And so it wasn't all stressful. Everything kind of balanced out. That was, the marriage was rocky at the time, and it was money problems. Um, there were other things that was going on, but we were working through those. The money thing, of course, we were working through that. We had teamed up and was tackling that. Um, but everything was still rocky. Um, I had health problems, and we didn't know you know what what was going on with me. Um, and I think because of that, it made a lot of things a lot more stressful than they really were, or really needed to be. Um, I was not able to regularly have good sex with my wife. Um, a lot of times I didn't crave her or sex, period. And man, it made it hard. It made it hard. Um, my weight was out of control. For me, I'm a naturally skinny guy. You look at the men in my family. My older brother is the only one who is a big guy. But my dad, my younger brother, Akil, my younger sister, Nisha, we're all really thin people. My brother Eric, he's like I say, he's a big guy. Um, but I had gotten up to like 220 pounds, my everyday weight, before I eat. 220 pounds. I'm 6 feet tall, and my stomach had gotten just really big. Um, that was of course a sign of stress. Big stomach. I was going through all of that, man, and I had an episode where I was in so much pain that I couldn't get up, and I just remember thinking, man, am I gonna die? It hurt that bad. I couldn't walk. I couldn't. Um, it was terrible. And so we had gone to the doctor, and I never forget the dude. He he examined me, but he had this look on his face, and I remember thinking, why is he looking like that? And he left out of the room after he looked me over. He left out, and we were in the room just talking, you know, small talk. And he stayed gone for like 30 minutes, um, maybe longer, maybe longer. He stayed gone. And we began to wonder, hey, where is he at? Um, uh, my wife at the time, she stepped out and asked the nurses, hey, where's the doctor? And while she was out there talking to them, well, he came back in and he told me, look, don't worry about anything. There's nothing to be concerned about. Don't worry about it. And then he walked over to me to shake my hand. And when he shook my hand, he pulled me closer and he told me, hand to ear, I can't tell you what's going on. Go get a second opinion. Get a second opinion. And it was some time to go by before I actually realized what he was actually saying, before I just really paid attention to what had happened. And, by that time, by the time I went to the doctor, I was already up and about. I've had those kinds of episodes before. None quite like that one, though. That one it made me say, oh my God. And so it made me also think about what had happened in the past. And I'll get to that. And so, all during this time, everything was, it was just life, going through life. We, between the two of us, with 9 children, 3 of them were still in the house. We had just had Tyreek. He's the youngest. He's 8 today. And so, it was just life. And, we started going through it a little more. It was getting a lot more stressful. Some things happened that made me, step back and want to, take a look at things, reconsider. So needless to say, Uber had started, jacking with the pay. They had been doing it, but it had gotten to the point to where there was really no point in going out because I was spending money on gas and wasn't making. I was barely making the money back for gas, and so I made a decision. Hey, I'm gonna have to do something different. But what I can't do, I cannot go punch a clock. Can't go punch another clock. I had done it once where I traded my weekends to go work at Lone Star Park, the horse race track. I like to tell everyone that I talk to that, I do radio, television, and film. I'm in live broadcast, on demand, and pay-per-view or pay-per-experience. And I've worked in 46 out of the 48 contiguous states at least 5 times each, working in some capacity, radio, television, and film. I've done everything from feature films down to, 15-second commercials. I've worked with the emerging personalities all the way up to the celebrity crowd. I've done everything but porn. I ain't done that. That was my punchline for when I introduce myself. And so I got a call one day. I forgot his first name. His last name is Franklin. I remember Franklin. He had found one of my old resumes on Indeed. And he called me. He said, hey, man, my name is out here at Lone Star Park. And we found your resume. And hey, we're curious, would you come out here and consider working for us? And I was like, what are we talking about? He said, well, we do horse racing. And then I thought about it, and I was like, wait a minute, horse racing? And I immediately went through all of the things that I've done. Horse racing wasn't on the list. And I told him, I said, man, y'all made a lie out of me. And so just pay me what what the job pays. If I need to come in and interview, I'll, fine. He said, well, yeah, come on out to interview. So I went out to interview, and I was there to shoot horse racing. And I mean, literally shoot, camera. And I messed around and opened my mouth. His name is Mark. Was it Mark? I think his name was Mark. The guy who interviewed me and who was he was the TD, technical director. And Saturday night I talked to him, and I'm looking around, and he was like, you know anything about this equipment in here? And I just started pointing to stuff. Yeah, that does this, that's wired to this. And if that stops working, well, you can, go check this, and that. He was like, and you're here to shoot horse racing? I was like, yeah. And then I told him, why? And he was like, no, man, I'm not putting you in one of those towers. You're staying in here with me. And I was like, well, look, man, I really want to shoot. He's like, no. You gonna work here? No. And so he started telling me about the different benefits, the different, we went on a tour of the place, and I made a decision, okay, I'll trade my weekends, because it was just a weekend job, Friday, Saturday, and I think Sunday. I think it was Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And I went out there, for that. But other than that, punching a clock was not in the cards for me, because I had gotten the company to the point to where it required me to have my butt in the seat in the studio. It required me to be open to be able to not only take a phone call, but to leave and go do business at the drop of a dime. This, in this business, you have to be ready to move, and you have to be, nimble. You have to be quick. You have to, jump over the candlestick. And I was not willing to allow somebody else's dream to interfere with mine, cause problems. And so, when the Uber thing started going bad, well, I started trying to find a way out of that car. And I talked to one of dearest friend of mine. He was killed. He was murdered. Talked to him, to his brother, his younger brother. And I told him, Ralph, I have to do something different. Ralph and I, we bonded because he and Kevin were very close. They would, they were close. And Kevin had tried putting us together, a few times. I had met Ralph and everything, but we didn't really get to work. We talked about a few things, extreme driving. He builds cars. Man has a Mustang, 1,300 horsepower. Put $100 bill on the dashboard, and he said, "When I say go, if you can reach up there and get that $100 bill, you can have it." He hit that joke, and he pinned me to the seats, and I could not reach up there and grab that $100 bill. That's how powerful that car was. So anyway, I told him, "Hey, I have to find something different." He said, "Man, I got a van at the house. I've been looking for someone to get in that van and go. It's money in that van." He said, "How much do you make with Uber?" I told him, I said, "Man, about, try to do like $500, $600, maybe $700 a month." He said, "Man, I can do $8." I was like, "Bet, let's do it." He's like, okay, there's another guy. I'm trying to make sure, he's not going to work out. I was like, come on, Ralph, I need it. He was like, okay, just let me see. A week later, he called me and he said, hey man, dude ain't working out. You ready? I was like, hell yeah. What I got to do? And so it was really just rides here in Texas, loads here in Texas, hot shots. And that first week I went out, and it was during that first week that the marriage ended, officially ended. It had already ended, months before, maybe, 2, 3 months before. And yeah, it was terrible, man. I was pretty broken up about it. And so I had already been out. And once that started happening, I told him, I say, look, let's widen everything. He was like, well, how far? What, the region? I said, nah, the whole United States, wherever the load is going, wherever it need to be picked up, send me. I need to get out of Fort Worth so that I can, I need to be by myself right now. He was like, man, what's going on? I said, man, just, relationship things, He was like, all right, send me out over the road. And so I left and I started, going whichever way the wind would blow me. And, I was hurting, not only emotionally, but I was hurting physically. And I was starting to take notice because this was, the last one I told you about, the one where it was like, oh my God, this was times 10. Even to think about it hurts. So, had a conversation with her, and she told me, she said, look, I'm about to take you off of the insurance. You're going to be off in a month. You need to go get a checkup. If you're going to, whatever you need to do medically, you need to go do it because you're finna come off. I was like, okay. And so I went in for a routine checkup, and I went and did a checkup. Hit Ralph, hey, I'm done with the appointment. Let's go. The ride, the load left Irving and went to I can't remember the name of this place. It's way up in Washington State, all the way up. That I stood in the middle of this particular boulevard, and this guy told me, hey, if you, because I had saw on the map that I was close to the border, and this guy, he told you, I was like, man, we're close to the border. He's like, yeah, man, if you stand out there in the middle of the street, you can see it. It's right down there. So I, went on out there, and I'm looking, and I don't know what I was looking at. It might have been the border. I don't know. But I was up by the border, and it took a few days to get there. Phone blowing up. I was like, what the hell is he calling for? It's the doctor. Hell is he calling me for? Ain't nothing wrong with me. And so I was up in Washington. It was Spokane, Washington, this particular time. I was, back in Washington, but I was in Spokane, not way up. And so I was at Love's, and I was waiting on the next load. It was like uh maybe about five, maybe 5:30 in the morning. Um, he had remembered, I guess, that I told him that I get up and I pray in the morning. I'm up, and he just kept calling. And that particular morning, I had already got up and prayed and had dozed back off. I was sleeping in the van. I was living in the van. Some nights, we would get a motel room. It just depended on where I was, what the weather was like. Um, you know, like that, depending on how tired I was. And this particular night, you can get a motel room. I'm like, man, you know what? That's eating up the money, bro. That we ain't gonna even trip on no motel rooms. I'm gonna go in Walmart and get a couple of pillows, and I got enough bags in here to where I can stack them up between the seats. I can flatten it out across. I'll sleep on the seats, man. Don't worry about it. So um, I was in that joke asleep, and he called. And you know how you roll over and you're half asleep. And you answer the phone. I scooped it up, hit it, yo. And what he said, man, I'm glad you finally answered the phone. He said, man, you need to come back to Dallas. I need to talk to you. I was like, man, I'm not gonna come in. He said, look, if you don't come back to Dallas, you're gonna die. Totally had my undivided attention. And I was like, well, what the fuck going on, man? Talk to me. He said, nah, man, in person. So even right now, man, I was at a loss for words. I was speechless. Um, that ride back to Dallas, it was probably the most intense ride that I have ever taken. Mind you, that's coming from someone who in a former life, done some things to where, I was in high speed chases, plural, with the police. Uh, and this ride was more intense than those. So I did a whole 20, I was right at about 20 hours, right at about 20 straight hours of driving. I drove from Washington back to Dallas. Well, I went to my mother's house, uh, went to my mama's house. Um, by the time I got there, because the appointment was at 11, by the time I got to my mama's house, it was, maybe about 4 o'clock in the morning. So I went and I laid down for a few hours. I went to the appointment, and he walked in, and the look on his face was, I knew something was wrong, was terribly wrong. And so uh, he was quiet, and then he just the first he hit me with a one liner. And I'm sorry to tell you, that you have cancer. My first response was, "Where the camera's at? What is he talking about me? Is this some kind of joke?" But then something in me already knew. Um, I had actually thought about that years ago. So what happened was, when I was a much younger guy, I got in a lot of trouble. I didn't come from a family who, that kind of lifestyle was, the order of the day. My parents are military. Um, they from the hood. And what I mean by hood is, my mom and dad, they were born in the early 50s. They came up during a time in Fort Worth. There's probably, a lot of other places around the United States where we are concentrated. Um, there was actually a black community. They grew up in that. I experienced some remnants of it. I was born into that. Um, I am in that generation of people whose parents were addicted, who became addicted to crack cocaine in the 1980s. I am one of those first children whose parents, that first generation of adults who were addicted to crack cocaine, well, they had children. I was in that group. And, we were out there, we was just trying to eat, man. And we done some things. We ran from the police. We did a lot of things. I just leave it at that. And so because of that, um, I was taken to prison at a young age. I was one of the youngest guys in the state of Texas to be taken. And it was during that first, uh, wait, was it? No, actually, no, actually, it was the next. It was the next. Uh, it wasn't that first unit. It was the next one. First unit was Ferguson. I was on the Ferguson unit from 1990 to 1992. Summer of 1990 to the summer of 1992. Um, and then I was taken to the McConnell unit. And then I left the McConnell unit in 1995 and was sent to the Darrington unit. It was when I was at the Darrington unit that I knew beyond a shadow of a doubt that something was wrong. I was in the shower and I was hurting. I was like, man, what's going on? So when I got back to the cell, I started I started, examining myself. Why am I hurting like this? This was the first time that I had felt that kind of pain. It was the first time. And I knew, I knew. And so I complained and I complained and I complained. And they thought that that the prison officials thought that I was just a disgruntled prisoner trying to get out of work. It wasn't it at all. I was really hurting. So on one of these occasions, I finally talked to a nurse who listened, and she told me, "Hey, I'm gonna have the doctor, the physician. I'm gonna have the physician to send you to Galveston Hospital in Galveston." All right, I was like, "Thank you so much." She said, "You ain't faking, are you?" I said, "No, I'm not." She said, "Okay." And so I was taken there, and they did an ultrasound. And so while I had been examining myself, I felt these lumps and nodules on my testicles. wasn't tender, didn't hurt. The only time that it hurt was when I had these episodes where, just my whole midsection from my thighs all the way up to about here. It hurt so bad. And so I went, they did an ultrasound, and they found what I had found. And they told me it ain't nothing to worry about. Don't worry about it. I said, okay. A couple of years later, same thing. They send me back. This time they don't ask no questions. I went in, I said, hey, I'm hurting. They sent me. So I get there. Well, how you doing this? I'm like, look, man, I am in pain. It hurts. So, okay, well, let me check it out, Oh, don't worry about it. It ain't nothing to worry about. I said, well, what is it? And so that particular doctor, he told me that it was a condition where sperm had busted through or was like wedged in between the layer of the testicle and was, in between that layer that's there and the testicle. It was like wedged in between there, and it was, making a lump. I had never heard that before. And, at that time, if the doctor says, this, that, and the third, I'm okay. So I just took it, and I took what he said, and I accepted it. Before I was released, after that doctor's visit, I had that incident happen 4 more times. All of the homies it was like, hey, cuz, what's wrong? I was like, man, I don't know. I was in so much pain one time. A guy that, I'm not going to say he was an enemy, but he was on the other side. He was like, say, blood, what's up? I was like, nigga, I ain't no blood. We we would always, laugh about that. But he was like, hey, blood, what's going on? What's wrong? Like, man, I don't know, man. They keep telling me not to worry about it, but I keep going and getting in pain like this. And never forget, his name is Insane. Insane, man. Love that brother. I just, I didn't know. And when I told him what was happening, he told me, he said, man, when you get out, he said, man, go to LA and talk to one of those doctors. I was like, man, all y'all good for out there is plastic surgery. Why in the hell would I talk? He was like, no, for real, man. He said, man, go talk to them doctors out there. Them people out there, it's different. Everything is different out there. And I was like, well, yeah, I know. I know. I, poked around out there a little bit. And I didn't go. And so fast forward to now, all of these different conversations, all of these different episodes where I had been in so much pain, all of this stuff has hit me all at once. And I was just looking to see if he was going to tell me, hey, man, this is a joke. Ain't nothing wrong. And the punchline never came. That punchline never came. And so he and the nurse, they don't want me to say their names because of what we're doing now. They work in mainstream medical industry. And this is what we're doing is totally against, what their jobs dictate that they should do. in my case. So they don't want to be named. None of them. One of them, he's not even in this country. He's in Nigeria. Have a team. There's 3 doctors, a nurse, and a technician. And I'm just going to leave it there because I don't want to put him under the bus. I still have a part of the treatment that I have to find the money for to get it. And I'll explain that. I don't want to put him under the bus. Nah, man, that wouldn't be right. They're going out on a limb. They're out on a limb right now to help me. And so, hey, man, I got y'all. Don't worry about it. I got y'all. So Doc, I just called him Doc, the main guy who had called me and I had to, come back. I was like, hey, what are my options? He said, well, we have to run more tests. But you're one of the healthiest people that we've seen. I was like, man, I don't feel like it. Because like I said, I was, 220, almost 230, big ass stomach. I just didn't feel like it. And then plus that was probably, at this time I'm going through all of this emotional stuff. I was emotionally drained. I was probably depressed. And, depression has it takes a physical toll as well. And so I was going through all of that. And, I didn't feel healthy. And so when I asked what the options were and he started talking about chemo, radiation, I didn't even let him finish the sentence. I said, no, we're not doing that. We're not doing that. He was like, well, wait, I don't have to do shit. We're not doing that. So, he just looked at me and he started again trying to reason with me and the nurse. She poked him and said, hey, I think you should listen to him. I think he knows what he wants to do. Look at him. And then she turned and she looked at me and she asked me, had I ever heard of Dr. Sabi? Of course, I had been following him. I remember the story. I had tried, a couple of times to do the plant-based diet. Tried a couple of times. One time, one of my good friends, William Sparrow, Will had he had come to our house and cooked for us a couple of times, maybe 3 or 4 times. Encouraging us, hey man, you don't have to eat that. Here, try this. Let me cook this for you. Let me cook that for you. And it ain't work because we weren't motivated enough. And when she said that, everything came, I had heard of them, but that wasn't why I said that I wasn't doing chemo or radiation. I knew that chemo and radiation kills you. I knew that. And I was like, well, hold on. If those are my options, I don't want them because I know I'll die from that. So, I told him, hey, I'm not doing that. And so from there, of course, I'm reeling. I have all of these different things going around in my head. And it was just, I didn't know what to do. So I asked him, what are the other options? Are there any other options? And he looked at the nurse. He said, "Hey, close that door," because the door was open. He said, "Look," he uh, I got to take a step back. He had us to turn our phones off. And when he said that, I knew he was finna tell me something. Because, when some people know what I'm talking about. These phones, they listen to they listen. They do. Uh, or people use them to listen. If they know to listen to you, that's one of the ways that they listen to you through your phone. And TVs, devices, if they have a speaker, they can listen. And so he said, "Let's turn the phones off." He turned the phone off. Then he turned the computer that was in there, he unplugged it, just unplugged it. And so he looked at me and he said, "Man, there is one other option. I've been dying to see what the results would be." And I was like, what is that? I think you finna tell me something because you had us turn all these electronics off. Uh, it seems to me like you're scared. And he just nodded his head like that, real ever so slightly. And he told me, he said, "Look, we are curious to know whether or not Dr. Sabi is right. We know beyond a shadow of a doubt that these drugs made by these pharmaceutical companies, we know that they don't work. All they do is they just put a Band-Aid over the symptoms. That's not solving the issue." This is how he's talking to me. And so I listened, and when he zipped it and was waiting on a response from me, first thing out of my mouth was, "Let's do it. Let's go that route. If food is my medicine, that's what we're doing. And if we have to use my body as the research specimen to prove it, let's do it." So that's how we started moving. I cold turkey. No more. I was already a picky eater. The people in my family, they call me the surgeon. My mom affectionately calls me the surgeon, and a lot of other people in the family, they've heard her say that to me or about me. And that's, a few other people, they call me the surgeon. And it's because, a lot of people, they pick up a drumstick, chicken, they pick it up and they bite it. Nah, man. I pick through it because I don't eat veins, don't eat fat, don't eat gristle, none of that. So I pick through it and get all of the choice pieces of meat out and eat that. And that's not only with chicken; it's with anything. Um, it was only, I think, maybe 3 kinds of bacon. There was 4 kinds of bacon that was allowed in the house. I mean, pork that was allowed in the house when I was growing up. Pork chops, ham, bacon, and sausages. Um, links and breakfast sausage. Uh, the other stuff, no. Steaks, uh, whatever else you can name. If it had that in it, I was picking through it. So I was already a picky eater. So, when he was saying, "Hey, let's go plant based," I was already on board. And then on top of that, uh, been involved with Islam at this point. Let's see, almost 30 years, almost 30 years, no pork. And so even to take meat off of the menu, it wasn't hard. I just said no and I stopped. Um, After that, um, doctor's visit. After that doctor's visit, I was driving around. Um, I didn't know what to think. I didn't know, what was going to happen. To say that we would be here right now, me talking to you about this. At that time, really didn't. I didn't know if I was going to be here for this. I wasn't sure about anything. Um, Man, I was an emotional wreck. I'm still kind of going through some things right now. About to lose my spot. Um, but what I can tell you is there are a number of things that are happening. There are a number of people who have entered my life who they made a difference. Um, and I don't know where I would be without them. My mom has always been in my life, and she ain't going nowhere. And I can't help but thank God for mothers and fathers. My dad, he's still in my life, and you really don't know love if you don't know your parents. You know, um, my dad. When I was a little kid, I wanted to be like my dad. I tell people right now, when I grow up, I want to be just like my dad. That's my hero right there. Um, he gave me this. He gave me all of this. I mean, I this stuff in here, I worked for it. What I mean is the whole music thing. All of this came about because of music, and I got that from my dad. Ever since I can remember remembering, this is what I've done. It's because I got it from him. My mom, she's a mother, and so uh, just a lot of different things, a lot of different people. Um, I started expanding my environment in here first, and I was going through it, and Will, he was like, "Hey man, I'm gonna send you some pictures. Tell me what you think." And I looked at him. I was like, "Hey, you know these? You know them?" He was like, "Yeah, I met him on this app." I'm like, "Really?" So, he was like, "Man, here, I'm gonna send you a link. Go on there." He said, "Man, when I got on there, he said, man, I got hit every which way but loose." He said, "You?" He said, "Man, when you get on there, oh my," and I was like, "Okay, all right, yeah, whatever." I jumped on the app, and within 2 hours, it was more than 800 women who had reached out to me. But it was just this one who um, her profile had my attention. Um, and it's not to say that I didn't uh, chat with anyone else. I'm not saying that. Um, I responded to as many of them as I could. It wasn't. I was not trying to, run into another relationship. I didn't think I was ready. But it was one, Annie Coco. Annie Coco in Monrovia, Liberia. Woman changed my life. And um, I can just leave it like that. Um, Good person. Started working with different people. Uh, Dallas is a whole nother world. Had I known that Dallas is like it is, I would have been here. Um, Dr. Shaver. This woman is she's a phenomenal woman. She founded a high school, a private high school, where children who, for whatever reason, are not doing well in public school. She's one of the alternatives that they have. She created an awesome school. This studio is located inside of her high school. And she began to help me because of a mutual friend that we have, Dr. Kylan Solomon, Hashim uh, Malik Bey. These people, they have really, looked out for me, helped me, um, and are continuing. Ralph Thornton, it's my brother. Will Sparrow, um, cannot. I would be a bum if I did not mention Albert C. Brewer, Charles, my business partner. Man, look here. It's a lot of different people. And then I started meeting, new people. As soon as I got up here, I had someone to come through. I had met her while I was out on the road. She did a reading for me. She's an E5 priestess. Her name is Isis Brantley. You're going to see her story come out. Started working with her. We've become very close, Isis and I. Um, you're about to see her story. And so that's where I am now. Um, I've been eating plant-based. When I um, first started, the weight fell off, scared the hell out of me. Started eating nothing but, and so during the time, it was Ramadan already. I was already fasting. And it was the second day of Ramadan. Of course, I'm eating at night. And I wasn't eating because, I'm out on the road. I don't know where I am, and I don't just eat anything. And so, second night, and I was like, man. So I cut meat all the way off. Will, Will told me, hey man, try eating nuts for just a few days. Nuts and water. You need to flush. I was like, all right. So I did that. I did it for 10. Well, really, 8, 7, something like that. The first 10 days of Ramadan that was left. Did nothing but nuts. The next 10 days, I added vegetables. The next 10 days after that, I added fruit. It might have been the other way around. And I just stuck with that, straight raw. And in 45 days, I went from 220 to like 190. 15 days after that, I stepped on the scale. I was 173. Right now, I'm about 175 pounds. And so I went down from, 220, 230 down to 175. And so it's not totally raw. Sometimes I eat, a lot of greens, things like that. And it's been really, really stressful because we've been looking for someone to help me pay for this other part of the treatment that I have to get. See, now we're at the point where we're actually proving what Dr. Sebi is saying. Yeah, he's still saying it. As long as people are listening, he's still talking, right? And so you get to a point where all of the excess mucus that's in your system, eating raw pulls it out. And disease, it hides in mucus. It makes it to where the immune system cannot identify it as a foreigner. And when you pull that out, the mucus, you pull the blanket off of disease. And what happens is that your immune system kicks in. You begin to get these headaches because headaches are usually related to fevers. You get the headaches, you get the fever, because one of the first things that happens, so the first part of the immune system is right here in the skin. That's the preventative side, that part to try to keep all of that stuff out. But if it gets past that because you're putting it in your mouth, it's because of your food, or however, it gets past that where you have a part of the immune system that all it's doing is patrolling, going through looking for a foreigner, and then it just hit him with with an enzyme to mark him. It starts to mark them. That's another aspect of it. And then you have another aspect that come through. They come through and they do their drive-bys. They come through and they do a drive-by. And they pull up on it and they get up in it and kill it from within. Then you have another part of the immune system that comes behind that and clean up the carcass. All during the time that this kind of stuff is happening, your immune system is in DEFCON 1. And all of these different things are happening all at the same time. And some days I feel weak because it's happening. Some days I wake up with a headache, go to sleep with a headache because I've been had it's not really a fever, because the next part of this, what I'm about to tell you about, is happening. You get the headache, but the fever is not as hot as the immune system would like it to be. One of the first things that happens is that the immune system looks to burn out an invader or a foreigner, burn it. Because these different things that make it into our bodies and use it as a host to thrive, they have a very narrow window of temperature that they can survive in. And so all of these diseases that harm humans, our normal body temperature, that is the temperature that they need in order to make it. And so the immune system, the Most High, that knows everything, knew that we were going to get in the situation that we're in now, and gave us a defense mechanism, the immune system. And the immune system, when it finds an invader, it kicks up into DEF-CON 1. Fever, try to burn it out because it knows that, make it too hot in there, you better stand it. Well, I get the headaches, but I don't get enough of a fever to drive them all the way out. And so that's what the other part of the treatment is for. The other guy that I was saying I wasn't going to put him out there. That's what that part of the treatment is for. The technology is in wide use right now. But my doctors and that technician, they want to use it to see if it will help, people in my situation. And so I don't have enough of a fever to burn it out. And so I need that help. Costs just short of $38,000 because of a mineral that they have to buy from somewhere in Africa. Every time they use that technology, it's something that they have to buy. And so that's probably said too much with that. But because of that, and it being difficult to, make the money in order to pay for it, we began looking. And we look for money everywhere. We look for grants. And, when you have these different grant opportunities and you're working with these different doctors and all of this different type of stuff, I had people that had, well, man, won't your insurance pay for it? Can't you get insurance and have that pay for it? I said, no, man, because they when you enter that system, you have to be with this kind of doctor. And that doctor has to be in the network. And that doctor in that network, he's going to use the drugs that are associated with that network, or it's not going to pay for it. And so that eliminates that. So we started looking for grants, people who usually fund, health-related initiatives. We'll say initiatives. Couldn't find them. We couldn't find them. And so ISIS has been helping me to live the plant-based life. I've been to several cancer facilities who said they wanted to help, but they were very disrespectful, trying to make me eat meat. And, they were saying that I had to, because I had become so weak and I had lost so many pounds. They are going by the old, all of the different things like the Harvard study that just came out that says that if you eat meat, red meat, twice a week, you're going to get diabetes. You're going to have heart disease. You're going to. But then they're telling me, hey, you need to be eating meat. And I'm not eating no damn meat. And so they're not going to pay for that. There's no grants available for that. And that was the reason why Fight With Your Food was born. That was the reason why.
Got a demon in my nuts, but my body's alkaline. Now it can't live here too much longer. Soul's on the edge and I ain't even afraid. I know me, look you in your eyes, cause I'm official prey. Yeah, I put that work into you, won't kill me. Cough up your protection, I'm divine, so you can't seal me. Into your casket, I don't belong there right now. Got too much more to do on this side of the dirt right now. Yeah, I must admit, you have my attention. Not to mention, you dictate my moves like you have. I got you, though. Doc say you can't stand my sound frequency. I'm alive, wild for sound. You